Good evening, everyone. It is January 13th of 2021. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting to order. The time is now 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start with item B, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. And so I'd ask if you would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
republic
for which it
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
Thank you so much. Item C is our roll call of council members. I will go slow to allow you to unmute yourself. So we'll start with Council Member Gary Molinar. Council Member Melissa Beaton.
Here.
Council Member Mark Hulst.
Here.
Council Member Mary Hudson.
Here.
Council Member Iris Carillas.
Here.
Council Member Richard Boxman.
Here.
And Council Member Juan Morales.
Here.
Thank you. Under our consent agenda tonight, we have items A, B, C, D, E, and F. They consist of meeting minutes, study session minutes, payroll checks, claims, and payroll.
I'll move for approval of our consent agenda. Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mary and a second by Melissa. Got that right? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposed? All right, thank you. Consent agenda passed. Our reports tonight starts off with item A, which is the review of emails from the public, and I'll ask Peter Donovan to relay our public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to you, Council. 3 letters came in from residents in the past few weeks to City Council, and this is the way that City Council is providing for the public to have their community comments heard by Council publicly. So if community members want to write to Council for community comments at the next Council meeting, they can do that by emailing those comments to council@mountvernon.gov. The first letter to Council is from Charlotte Schofield, and Charlotte writes, "Hello, Council. I recently learned that Anacortes has successfully provided their businesses and residents with fiber for internet service, and now the internet is essentially a public utility. This is awesome news. I was wondering if the City of Mount Vernon has considered providing internet as a utility to its residents. I do know there is fiber downtown for the businesses, correct? I'd be interested in hearing what your thoughts are on this, and if there are any plans in the future to provide these services to residents. I think that internet is a service that everyone should have access to, especially now during a pandemic. It's a basic service that is used by everyone, no matter their socioeconomic status, and should be affordable and reliable. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Charlotte in Mount Vernon." The next note to Council is from Dale Reagan, and Dale writes, "It is disappointing for me to read where the City Council is considering borrowing $10 million to spend on fire stations. You should recall that in April 2019, the voters of our city rejected a bond measure for this, and you are considering putting this in their face and going against the voters' wishes. The least you could do would be to consider developing a community committee or some forum from the community to discuss what to do. It appears that only 9 people, council, mayor, and fire chief, have talked about this. Hardly community input. We, the voters, learn about this by reading in the local newspaper. Insulting. Just because you can borrow money doesn't mean that you should. Please consider how this makes you, the council, look like you don't care what the voters think. The COVID issue had not made your job and responsibility any easier, but it should not make it appear you don't care about the voters. Yes, I have been somewhat blunt in my message, but this is important. Please consider doing the right, smart thing before taking action. Dale Reagan." And the next letter is from Steve Johnson. And Steve writes, "Dear Mayor Boudreau and City Council members, I have watched several City Council meetings on Zoom and am so impressed with how cordial and civil your interactions are. In light of national politics, it is something to be proud of. I recently read the article in the Skagit Valley Herald about fire station projects. I want to thank you for your diligent work and congratulate you on finding funding for our fire department, especially now that we have a worldwide pandemic that is affecting so many people. It is wonderful to have government leadership look for every option to help pay for expenses. Keep up the good work. Steve Johnson. That is all of the letters, Mayor.
Also, we should maybe just let people know, email, you could aptly send an email, and that's in our agenda, but we do accept public comment, which was, I think, the last letter that was either mailed to City Council or mailed to City Hall or dropped off if it's asked that it is for public comment. So I don't want people to think if they don't have email or don't do that they can't participate. So thank you. All right. Item B tonight is a department update. And because we're in COVID and we don't have a committee meeting separately, as council knows, we put it on our regular agenda. So tonight is our Public Works Department update. And so Escobel, our Public Works Director, is here along with several of staff to go through our agenda. So go ahead, Escobel.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me see if I can get my screen up and shared. Hopefully everybody's seeing the Public Works update slide. Yes?
Yes, I am, Esco.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And Blaine will be taking away the first item. Go ahead, Blaine.
Yes, we were going to talk about the energy management plan. I believe there was a request to discuss some of these topics. So we wanted to do that tonight. We've been working on an energy management plan. One of the things is an EV vehicle plan. Is part of that also, I know there's been a lot of work done on facilities, and Chris Phillips will update you on what's been going on that side. Kind of in the early days when we started this, it was broken out that way that it used to be Rick Prosser would work on the facilities stuff, and Public Works would work on certain items that fell under our purview. So on the energy, on the electric vehicle plan, I have been working on a plan here, and that is staff is proposing a plan for the city. I've worked with Gary Owens and discussed with most of the department heads vehicles within their departments that we could potentially switch out. Most of these vehicles are general use vehicles. There's 17 of them that we would switch from internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid or just hybrids. It depends on how the vehicle's used, whether we would what we would choose, and we also want to get input from the department directors and the staff that use those vehicles when we make this decision as well. So no final decision about what we would switch a vehicle to has been made yet, just a proposal. In addition, the city would need 14 electric vehicle charging stations at different locations around the city. The city shop would need a couple. There'd have to be a couple at City Hall. Every place we have one of these vehicles, we would need at least one charging station. The replacements of vehicles would happen as resources become available. So in other words, if anything were to happen in 2021, it would have to be grant funding that we found available at this point in time, as budget's already set. We wouldn't do anything unless, I mean, it's always a policymaker decision if you guys choose to do something different, but our recommendation at this point would be not to mess with the budget in any way, shape, or form, and just if resources became available to do something. We would recommend, though, that when we start talking about the budget for 2022, that we consider whether we want to start replacing some of these vehicles, you know, a little bit at a time as we move forward. And that's basically the main points of the plan at this time.
Excellent.
Yes. Here we're starting to get into facilities, but I do want to touch on something really quick here. The city solar array has been asked about. Just to give some of the folks that don't know the background on the city solar array project, that in 2010, the city applied for funds and was awarded a state grant, Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant from the Department of Commerce. We had considered this a pilot project to see how well solar arrays would work in our area and for what we needed it for. We would get to test the technology, and our staff would get to gain some experience with it and see what worked and what didn't work. And in 2011, Northwest Wind and Solar started construction of the project. The state had production incentives and used state production incentives on inverters and solar panels, that would entice us to use ones that were produced in the state. The city chose Silicon Energy out of Marysville for our solar panels, which was considered the Cadillac of panels at the time. Everybody was saying these panels would last forever. You should always, I guess, be concerned when they say forever, because the construction cost was for about $85,000. The city only spent about $2,500 of our money on it. The rest was grant funded. During the last report in July of 2016, the panels had produced approximately $700 a year worth of energy. But the production credits we got from using the in-state had given us about $16,000 worth of money over that 4-year period. To be honest, after about 2016, when I gave the last report, I just assumed they were up there doing their thing, and I hadn't really touched bases with it until the other day when I was trying to find out how they were working. Since that time, it sounds like the solar panels had started to delaminate, and the Silicon Energy has actually went out of business at this point in time. So we don't really have a recourse to get anything done. They're out of business, and we have panels that are delaminating. It sounds like, and Chris can probably give you more information on this. In 2020, we had an inspection of the panels that revealed that we should probably decommission them. So that's kind of where we stand right now with the panels. That isn't kind of, to be honest, I'm a little disappointed with that, but it is what it is. So I don't know if Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, I'll cover part of that in my portion, but I just wanted to hand over to council if they had any questions to pass to you as far as the vehicle portion.
I did have one question on the vehicle portion. I know that through the state, we utilize the state contract to purchase vehicles. Do you know if there's anything special that the state has set up for the electric vehicles?
There are some, according to Gary, and I don't know all the specifics, Gary would know this, but there are some electric vehicles on that state list. I do not know specifically which ones. I'm pretty sure he's mentioned the Leaf and a couple others, probably the Chevy Bolt, but I don't know specific. I can't give you the specifics. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just wondering if they had any special programs if a city or municipality wanted to move over to a more green vehicle, if there was some extra bonus that we might be able to get through the state by using their contract.
Check into that, Mark. It's a good
Yes. We can check into that. Yes.
Well, I'll jump in too. I really appreciate the thinking on what does our current fleet look like? What types of vehicles and uses would be appropriate for electric vehicles, and kind of thinking about how that might work over time. I doubt anybody's going to pay us to flip our fleet over immediately, but sort of slow and methodical. I have been watching, what vehicles we've been purchasing the last few years, and there really haven't been any generally used fleet vehicles. So we're not too late to do this. It's a good time to think about it. I guess the staff must have done quite a bit of research. I've shared some articles with the staff over time as well that, that shows that operations costs are such a savings now on electric vehicles that they do compensate for the increased capital outlay up front. So it's clearly a good direction, not just a helpful thing for carbon reduction. So it's cost efficient for the city to be doing this work for the right types of vehicles. I appreciate Mark's suggestion about what kinds of deals are out there, and we can just start looking at that as we move forward. I really do think that we ought to think about the network of chargers in the city, and not just for our own use, but for other vehicles, so we can help incentivize that and bring more people off of the interstate to help us with economic development downtown and in other parts of the city. So I really appreciate the report out.
Okay, it sounds like this is a good time for me to get into the facilities piece. So, as many of you know, we've discussed this when I first came on board. This was one of the areas, facilities, that we took on board. With that was the implementation of Facility Dude, which is our web-based software that we utilize, or I'm sorry, cloud-based software that we utilize as this. We've completed capital equipment inventories for well over 500 pieces of equipment. We instituted a building manager program for the facilities. We've again fully integrated Facility Dude and implementing it to its full capacity, which includes day-to-day work orders, preventative maintenance, capital equipment replacement program. But I believe back in 2018, the council, when presented this, we created basically an enterprise fund for facilities and facility renewal. In that portion of it, we also had conducted an energy audit back in the 2016-17 area, and we have had a fairly robust program with the funding that we've been provided. The HVAC equipment and ducting replacement that's been done at City Hall, and a portion of the work there, I'd say we're probably at about a 60% completion at City Hall, and at the police court campus, we're somewhere around 30 to 40%, but nonetheless, we are taking things as they go along with this. We've updated our boilers and our boiler systems with cleaning. I think I brought if you remember a few years ago, I brought you the parts that had so much, you'll love the technical term here, of muck that was in there. It was causing valves and other parts to fail. We're not seeing that now. Everything has been working really well. We had a LED light conversion program. So City Hall is probably close to about 85, 90% on that, as well as other facilities throughout the city. So much like an electric vehicle, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Eco-friendly water fountains have been incorporated, emergency generator equipment replacement. We've got 2 of the 4 large areas, Fire Station 3 and City Hall, completed. We still got work that needs to be done at Fire Station 2 and the police court campus as funding becomes available for it. Window maintenance and replacement. Again, this gets into just good housekeeping. You know, we're making sure that as during the prior to winter weather, we're taking a look and seeing what's going on with our facilities, and if we need to add caulking or take care of business with that, we will do that. And then for Energy Star equipment replacement, anything that gets equipment that's replaced, we make sure that it has the Energy Star efficiency like you would see at Lowe's or Home Depot or any of the other big box stores. We ensure all of that with our contractors that we have coming in with doing any type of work for us. We're looking at insulation. We're looking at green products. We're ensuring that again the best is available for our employees, and also providing that service again when our residents come in and utilize those. Next slide, please. In this, as I mentioned, here are just some of the percentages that I laid out as far as the HVAC system is concerned. As you can see, in some of the older buildings with the library and the Public Works admin building, consider their furnaces and things that they have down there would be something that's almost like what you would find in a home. We keep those up to date with our maintenance. We have preventative maintenance options that are in there. The mayor, during the COVID time, we've got all of our filter replacements that are done with HEPA 13 filters, which are basically medical surgery type situations, in the hospitals. That's where our filtration system is now for the city. That's all facilities that are there. As I mentioned, with the fire stations and the police court campus, we're still working with a variety of HVAC replacements. The systems are old. You know, we've seen this as you know when we brief you on our facility renewal plan as part of the capital improvement plan. You know, so as funding does become available, we're taking care of these things. And then again, here with the LED light conversion, when we open back up the city hall, or if you're coming in to meet with the mayor in person, I just ask you to just take a walk around. It's remarkable in some of the workspaces, the amount of light that is provided now, and really very good feedback from our employees. Next slide, please. We talked about the eco water fountains. These are located as noted here in City Hall, the police department, library. The last time I did a check on this, in City Hall, the 2 water fountains basically have already paid for themselves in less than 2 years. So, you know, we're not using bottled water or anything like that. These have the filtration systems, and you can put your bottles right up to that to get your water. Similarly, over at the police station, same thing. And then while the library was open, those were getting just a lot of use. So I see that as a very positive, you know, compliment to the system we have. To talk a little bit more about the solar panel array. So as Blaine had mentioned, you know, it was about the 2016 timeframe when I joined the city. Rick Prosser was here and was in charge of the facility piece, and I was just getting a better understanding of what was going on with that. We had an inspection that was completed by an outside agency at that particular time, and at that time they had talked about the safety issue as it related to those particular panels. Rick shared that information with me as he was basically retiring, and then the next thing that I took care of was when PSE came and did a request for information on this, chatted with Blaine a little bit, and then they came my way. We ended up having the company that actually installed the solar panels and the arrays up on the roof that assumed the panel maintenance, if you will, because the company that was down in Arlington did go belly up. They went out of business. It also, the whole industry that was factories and things of that nature that were located out of state that supported them also went out of business. So this particular company did a one-time inspection in 2016, and they provided that to me where they had noted some of the panels delaminating and the system was not very, or was not safe. So at that particular time, Rick had turned the system off. In 2020, I had that same company come back out to validate the status of the array up there, just so I could get an idea to share with council on, you know, how much was going to be the replacement cost for new panels coming in there. And Blaine, as I talked with him late last week, was going to find out, you know, what was the bang for the buck for putting these particular panels on, which he shared with you earlier this evening. So at the present time, the good news is they do not present a fire hazard to the city, although they are on city at City Hall. They are not in use, and basically, you know, I just wanted to share with you the estimated repair costs that I had from the company that came out and did the maintenance inspection. Some other energy conservation things that I have, and then I'll open it up to questions, is, you know, when we can get motion sensor lights and switches in all of our facilities, that's what we're doing. So again, it's kind of a proximity switch. You leave the room, after a certain period of time, the lights go out. We program our cooling and heating hours, both at City Hall and all the places. And if you recall, back in 2018, we have a Siemens system that basically nests City Hall, the police court campus for those 4 HVAC units that have been replaced over there, and the Lincoln Theater. So all of these can be taken care of by our folks, you know, if temperature is too cold or too hot, and make those adjustments. So that's really been a good program. Internal equipment, as we talked about, using energy saver mode. So when we are leaving work, automatically, if it's not used for a short period of time, they go into a saver mode. We have installed heating and cooling window film at City Hall. So again, in the summertime, when you got that nice westerly sun coming in, This again reduces that heat, and then in the wintertime, it actually helps us retain some of the warmth inside of the building. We provide education flyers to our employees. These are distributed throughout all the facilities, just as an education piece to it. It's kind of interesting. The mayor, I think it was probably back in 2017, we came up with a concept of we call it potty talk, but nonetheless, these are flyers that are installed in the bathroom. So when people are there and are wondering what to do, they got some great information to go ahead and read on a variety of topics. So we put that there. And then lastly, as I mentioned about the Siemens HVAC control installation, it really has helped the system, again, be more fine-tuned and reacting during either cold events or hot events to provide that cooling air or that heating for our employees. And with that, I am open to any questions that you may have.
So in your packet, Council also should have seen this little memo. It was back in 2017 of just the response to some climate change concerns, and it really discussed some of the other major things that save energy and out of our wastewater treatment plant and the replacement of the blower and the fan, and that significant amounts of energy that was replaced or helped there and reduced. So Councilmember Brocksmith had asked for a discussion around the energy efficiency plan, and so this is what we wanted to present and just see what, is there direction from council and what else you would like to see.
No, I think we've been pretty responsive as opportunities have arisen. We've moved forward and taken advantage of different grants that have come forward, different opportunities. And just when we're doing our upgrades, we seem to be pretty conscientious about the energy piece of that. So I think Chris is doing a great job. And I know that Public Works has worked on this also with the street light upgrades and those kind of things, and I know they're continuing to look. So it's nice to get an update on what we've done and kind of where we're going. But I think we're just taking advantage of the opportunities as they arise.
Any other questions?
No, Jill, I'd just like to say, certainly we're disappointed in the solar array, the solar panel array. That is very disappointing, but there's no way you're going to know somebody's going to go out of business. It's just unfortunate, and that happens. Of course, I think I would like to see us try to, reinvent that if it's possible, realizing that that's a pretty good chunk of money. Hope, but I know that we'll be looking at it if there's opportunities, grant or whatever, that we could rebuild that solar panel array. I know that will be something that's on the top of Chris's mind as we're moving forward this year.
Could I, Councilmember Hudson, I would, this is Esco, I'm just mentioning that we should make sure, again, we did that with that really good grant opportunity, and it was very successful that way, but that's a constrained area, and there's the panels up there. It produced $700 worth of power a year. So that takes, you got to have that. It does not produce enough to spend too much on it.
So we really need to look for perhaps a different location.
It's not the best application. You're right. In an urban constrained area on top of a building like that, where it's high cost to put that on a roof. Yeah, it's, done right. It works. But that is, like I said, we were learning a lot through it, and the city invested a very small amount, and we're well into the black. And we learned a lot, like I said, because, in all of these things, we're trying to move in, look where to implement these technologies. And this one, I wouldn't double down on that, but that doesn't mean we can't do it differently somewhere else in the city. But I wouldn't do it I wouldn't revamp those, not for $700 of power a year. That wouldn't be worth it.
Right. Yeah, I get you. I hear what you're saying, Esco. Thank you for that.
You bet.
I do have a question, if possible.
Go ahead, Juan.
Okay, and this might have already been answered, but for the estimated repair cost of 80 to 100,000, if these repairs are done, would they be done this year? And if so, is that money? Is it there?
We, to answer your question, we had not budgeted that at all. It's kind of the first time we've really discussed it. And so what we would love to know if council wants us to do a little more digging on being able to deploy solar panels, whether it's on City Hall or if we have another area, or do we want to commit to that in new construction that we're going to be undertaking? So, I mean, that's, moving forward, that's something that is what we're seeking, guidance for from the council.
Well, I know since we're going to be talking about, fire infrastructure, maybe that's something that could be incorporated in those remodels. I'm not sure, but certainly something to think about.
Yeah, so along those lines, we did learn something from this older technology. Of course, the world has kept moving in the last 10 years. So I really appreciate that as we think about new infrastructure, that every infrastructure project, we look at the bottom line of the capital investment cost versus energy efficiency costs and make decisions going forward. I really do think we as a government ought to be thinking about being energy neutral and supporting our community in an effort to be energy neutral. And so I just want to give an example because I think this this old experiment may leave a bad taste in people's mouth. And the truth is that these things are far more efficient and deployed in the right system. So I'm looking at a system now for another project in Burlington that would put in 158 panels on an existing roof, much like City Hall. And that would cost about $134,000 to put in a system that's probably 10 times the size of this one. That would produce about 78 kilowatt hours. And over a 30-year period would save more than twice that amount of money in energy costs and has 25-year guarantee and 85% production guarantee. In other words, they keep working and will continue to work and you can cost around that. So these systems are extremely efficient, extremely cost effective. And, it's sort of what I hope where we'll be going. And I think if we just did that bottom line analysis, it'll show that they'll pay for themselves. It's not only the right thing to do, it's an efficient cost savings for the city.
Gary, you have something?
Yeah, I kind of agree with ESCO. I mean, if I'm doing the math, it looks like it was a $74,000 loss because it sounded like we made what you said, $700 a month, and I'm averaging that out plus maybe the 16,000 that we did get.
Yes.
But I'm really happy with the motion sensors and the heat control, and the windows. I think that's kind of where I would go more. It would be interesting to know, and I don't know if this is even possible, but just to even check out the amount of electricity that we've saved over the course since we've done some of these things, or if we're able to even track that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Councilmember Molinar, that's kind of where the energy study comes from. So there were initiatives that were put in, and you're absolutely right. Now we're just kind of waiting a little bit of time, and again, usually that's like measured in years, just to be able to see what we've done, give it a wait, wait for it, and then measure again so that you can see what those savings are. So absolutely, I'll dig into that as far as the facility perspective is concerned and share that. But that's where that energy audit kind of comes into play because it gives you an idea of where to put your bang for your buck.
Yep, sounds great.
I might add that, definitely like Councilmember Brucksmith said, you know, this stuff is not, you know, you learn a lesson from one project. You know, we need to, the technology is improving constantly, and it's the definitely what we want to do and head toward. You just, you know, you just like anything you do, you just got to make sure you're being thorough about how you analyze whether it's everything's ripe, you know, like on the vehicles, you know, battery technology has improved a lot. Boy, that makes a huge difference. And then other things. So you're always, you know, there's some place for solar panels to be really good, but this one was we learned a lot, but yeah, you can't do it with $700 a year. That won't cut it on this one instance, but we'll find more for you. We'll keep leaning in and keep our eyes open and figure out how to do more.
So I guess I just want to kind of recap what I feel like direction from council is that the information presented tonight is what you want us to continue to keep doing, continue to maximizing the efficiency from all city departments, whether it's wastewater treatment plant fan or a light in an office. And so that's what we're absolutely committed to do. That we would also look at adding new ideas of solar, either in new construction or even looking for maybe unexpected places that it would make sense. And then bring back some of those types of proposals to you. Does that encapsulate what the direction is?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, Marav.
Thank you.
We'll continue on. I think Blaine's got some more stuff to tell us.
Okay.
Yeah, just one quick item. The force main that was put along Freeway Drive from the College Way Freeway Drive pump station, stormwater pump station. You also have a sanitary sewer at that location, but I'm talking the stormwater. That force main that goes down to where Culshan Creek comes out. We worked on that upgrade to that whole force main as part of the College Way project. And then we had this one piece at the end there that required some more extensive permitting with shorelines and ecology that we wanted to finish. It's about 40 feet on the shoulder of Freeway Drive there at the location where it currently outfalls. So we've went through the permitting process, which took a little longer than we originally hoped. We had hoped to get this thing done this last fall, but we did finally get through the permitting process. We're working out the final design details. Reichard Niebe's working on that right now. I'm helping them out figure some of the details out. The high density polyethylene parts will be manufactured offsite and then brought in. And then our own street division as the weather permits, because when it's raining at all, that pump station's working. So we have to have a dry time for at least a few days where it's been dry and it stays dry. Then we're going to go ahead and put that final piece in. Next slide, please, Esco. And this is, if you were at the side of it, looking at the side of it in the ground, this is the last piece that they're going to do. The high density polyethylene will come in 2 sections of pipe. Both of them will be phalanged on the ends, and not the outfall end, but the other ends. And we will put those together with phalanges and bolt those into place. And the head wall will have to be opened up. The old pipe is about 12 inches. It's a corrugated metal pipe, CMP culvert, and you can kind of see it there in the background on this. And then the new high density polyethylene pipe takes that up to 24 inches. That is the outside diameter, so it isn't 24 on the inside, but it actually will improve our pumping capacity quite substantially there. And as the council knows, we have made a lot of incremental improvements to this system. This is kind of the final piece for the foreseeable future. There is some pump station upgrades we could make at some point, but we don't think we need to do that now. So we're not going to plan that effort at this point. We think this will give us plenty of pumping capacity.
This force main, the pump station drains such a huge area there in that commercial area all the way to Walmart and on College Way, and this force main just effectively like doubles the capacity of that whole pump station. So it's a really impactful project. It's not, I guess you got to be a public works guy to love it like I do, but
Yeah, it actually loops all the
Probably.
way around under under the freeway along Stewart and over to the other side towards Riverside. There, it catches part of that area too. So it's a pretty substantial area.
yeah, it's a big deal for all of that.
Okay.
Next, all right. So then we're on to Bill Bullock. I hope you're there.
I'm here.
All right.
Good evening, Council. So, quick update on the Colshan Trail lighting project. Right now, it's currently under construction. Oceanside Construction was our low bidder, and they're rolling along with this like gangbusters. They intend to be done by the last week of January, maybe a little bit into the first week of February, but right now they're right at about the halfway point and just under a week and a half of construction. So, they're rolling right along. Oceanside, just as a reminder, is basically installing the conduit and the pole locations, and then PSE will come in. PSE Intolight, they're the service company that operates, maintains, installs most of our street lighting in the city, and they'll come in February and install 25 street lights along the trail and energize them. So by the end of February, maybe the first half of March on the outside, depending on weather, including snow, we may very well have a lighted trail. So that's exciting. Next slide, please. And so here's a couple pictures of their project from last week. This is the Habitat for Humanity side of the trail. It goes to 18th Street, and they are about 1,200 feet beyond this now. So this is kind of old pictures, and it's only been a week, but they're doing great work. This gives you a little bit of an idea of the conduits they're putting in, and they're also putting in, I guess I'll call them security pole locations in 5 different locations of the project, basically where the different entrances to the project are. And those cameras will be installed potentially sometime this summer as part of our fiber utility. Kim Kleppe manages the security cameras in the city, so that will be done as a separate effort after this project's been completed. Next slide. So last year, I developed a local road safety plan for the city to take part in the Washington Target Zero. It's a program to do a data-driven based analysis of our city's intersections and high severity accident locations. And then as part of developing that plan, and if anybody who likes that plan, send me an email, I'll be happy to send it to you. I developed that in March of last year, and then applied for a few different projects. And so we ended up receiving $67,000 for some miscellaneous traffic safety improvements. The most notable of which is on Gates and 2nd Street. We have a bit of a bulb out there where we put a left turn pocket in that seems to have issues, let's say that. And so this will help resolve that geometry at Gates and 2nd. And then we have some minor pedestrian improvements at Kincaid and 15th and Fulton and 8th Street. And so we're kind of excited every other year. So the even years, the cities, Washington State cities, have a grant application opportunity based on their safety plan. And on the odd years, the counties get to apply for projects for them. So this year is the turn for Washington State counties, and then next year we will have another shot at accidents that give us an indication where we may. And these are also part of this is that we have locations that are generating a higher than expected level of accidents, but we apply for money where we have an applicable countermeasure to those issues that's happening in those locations. The analysis we did, actually, there were several places that needed attention. Most of those were on like College Way and 30th, College Way and Riverside. Basically, all of them were being addressed by projects that were already underway with those appropriate countermeasures for signals. So this that got into our report that I created, just to sort of demonstrate that the city's really rather proactive with this type of corrective action. And so the city's done a great job in the past 10 years, and we're going to continue that work.
Thanks to Bill for getting us some money to do it.
Yes, that was a good job on that. All right.
I think that's my last slide, but I'm not sure.
Wait.
And this is quick map of the different locations. So
yep.
I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but we have the locations for 2nd and Gates, 8th and Fulton up at the top, and then Kincaid and 15th next to the hospital on the bottom side there.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, and then now it's my turn for a while. As Council and Mayor knows, that we've been working on the administration building out at the wastewater treatment plant. It was long overdue to get some added space out there and to remodel it. So we've been working on that project for a couple of months. We've got the demolition site work and underground utilities work is all done, and now we're working on the buildings, the foundations and the walls, and also inside the remodel of the existing facility. So here's just a slide that looks kind of cool that Gary Duranso, the wastewater division manager, gave me. And this is kind of cool, the way this conveyor they were using to Axel Construction's doing the building, and they got this apparatus in there to put the fill where they needed to all over the site. And then I just got a couple other little pictures here. One on the left, just these folks from Axel Construction building the foundation. And then on the right, you can see the existing admin building. You can see where we're inside there, we're working on that. And then also adding this extra space and the retaining wall out here and the wall that's going up. So that should be, like I said, that'll be done in a couple months by spring for sure. Then the next item I wanted to mention is folks at our city attorney's office and Andy Hansen, our solid waste division manager, have been really working on this. The contract we have with Waste Management, who provides our residential recycle, that is going to be expiring and needs to be renewed. And so we're working on that agreement, and we're just about ready to send out the copy to all the council and mayor for you to look at, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward fairly quick. You know, I don't know if we'll be able to have it in front of you formally at the next council meeting, but hopefully at least by the early part of February. But anyway, here are just a couple of bullets, and Andy Hansen should be here if we need him to back me up. But in general, it's the same services that we're already doing. It's just continuing that. There is a big change on the next bullet. Waste Management will be managing all of the billing for their services instead of the way we do it now, where the city does that in our finance department. So that's a big change from the way we've been doing it. And then the period that we're proposing is a 7-year term with two two-year optional extensions. Now, the costs are going to be increased for inflation, and also the recycle market has not been good compared to what it was in the past. And so there's a lot more costs that need to be recovered from the rates. So you're looking at something in the range of existing $5.92 per month going up to $10.54 per month. So again, I don't know if you have any questions, but this is something you'll get to see the details and real soon. Like I think next week we'll have you the full copy that we're proposing. Andy, are you there? Do you have anybody have any extra comments? If not, I'll go on to the next.
Actually, I do have a question, Esco.
Yeah.
Is the increase, I'm sorry, the increase per month, is there some money built into that for them taking over the billing?
Yeah, I mean, but that's not the biggest expense there. I mean, yes, they're going to have to add a service they didn't provide before, but that's most of that difference is explained just by inflation and the fact that the market for recyclables is just not bringing that rate down. And we're still, Andy can describe this more in detail if we need to, or we can address it later on again. But, you know, we'll end up compared to our neighbors, you know, we're lower than county services for that, and then we're a little higher than some of the others, and we can detail that information for you. Some of that's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, you know, and for all of our options that are available to us, I mean, besides something like taking the service on ourselves, you know, we're going to have a hard time doing much better than what we're seeing here, and we'd certainly, you know, it wouldn't be, it'd take us a lot of capital, and we'd have to do a lot of things. So Waste Management does good service, and they're the most feasible option available to us. But Andy, I can't see him on my screen, so I don't know if he even is.
I'm here. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor.
Yeah, Andy, I don't know if Council Member Hudson, do you have any more questions on that, on the dollars? I know that's a big increase, but
yeah, that's my biggest question is the increase. And I think we are all we all realize that the recycle market has changed. We've been hearing that, you know, for a couple of years at least. So I just was a little bit surprised at it practically double. That was my, that's why I wanted to ask that question.
Hey, Esco, if I could chime in here, I'm just kind of curious why the change with the billing. Is that something Waste Management wanted? I mean, it seems like we do a pretty good job with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're good at delivering services, but I think it makes sense for them to, and I think we can probably get a better value that way, just to have them handle that. Andy, you know, rather than separating those two things?
So, Councilmember Beaton, currently how we do it is we see it on our utility bill that we're billing our customers. So they would take over that entire billing, and it would be just like you're in unincorporated Skagit County, you'd receive a bill from Waste Management for that. And I believe they bill every 2 or 3 months. So part of that is the increase you're going to see in our last extension of the contract was it's a price per cart. And so we really would need to track, if we have multiple residents that have multiple carts, that's going to be a $10.54 price per cart. So the way we have it now is Waste generally doesn't have keep track of all the carts that go out. And so right now we receive all that money. We then turn and pay Waste Management each month of that. So we have a tough time tracking how many customers that have multiple carts out there. So this would be putting it into their lap to be able to track all the carts that are out there from their inventory and have a direct billing to the residents.
Yeah, it'd be easier. Yeah, it's just more efficient to have those two tied together.
Currently for them, they have shut down their local facility in Burlington. They run very little out of that. We had asked to keep that facility open, but obviously with keeping that admin staff, that's an increase in the price to keep that open. So they pretty much run out of a call center and all their facilities. And so it's a little unique for us. As you know, we collect solid waste, they collect recycling. In a lot of their areas, they collect recycling, organics, and garbage. So it's the prices, it changes a little bit on that, but we're unique where we still collect solid waste and daily recycling. So most of that is the embedded price of the cost of service, the recycle market, part of the 7-year contract, just like we do with our trucks. It amortizes it over 7 years to be able to, pay for those trucks that are servicing it. So we did some extensive work on this the last couple of years with trying to find if it was an option for us to do and looking at other organizations to be able to do it. And they have a long history of it, that they're good at it. I'm constantly talking with them, and we felt pretty good about this. But that would be a change. It's certainly something if the council wants me to talk with them about to keep the billing in our hands, we could do that if you'd like, or however you want to go in the direction on that. I know it would take a little bit out of the utility finance hands, as we are fielding a lot of phone calls with recycling issues, and then we direct those to waste management. So all the calls regarding recycling would go directly to waste management, and it would just bypass our office, which to me is going to, free up some time, or be able to use our time a little better from the utility office. And as you know, in the budget, it's an ugly number when we're talking about the recycle, the cost of the recycling and paying that out. And it looks good not to have it in there, but I'm certainly willing to talk to them if you want me to check into that, or if we want to continue to take on that billing.
Well, I guess I'm just a little concerned that when I see this, without knowing anything, my initial thought is I'm seeing recycling going up more for our citizens versus what we're doing now. And did I hear you correctly in that we're kind of moving in that direction? Because I may have 3 carts and right now I'm only being charged for 1, and Waste Management wants to receive funding for all 3 carts.
That's correct. So the price would be $10.54 per month, and the default cart that's delivered is a 64-gallon. So whether you have a 32-gallon, a 64, or 96, the price is going to be $10.54 per cart. And the recent contracts, looking over several, they've gone away from a per ton rate, and they've been, leaning towards a per cart rate. And so with that, the options are limited. Again, we could look at it ourselves. It's a project to undertake if we're doing it ourselves. And if you get to that point, we would still have to contract with Waste Management for the disposal. So either way we look at that, we certainly can do the service, but we have to look at a facility to dispose. That would be Waste Management. They're the only facility that does that. So $10.54 is a lot. And until we see a change in the recycling market, I can only assume that there's a chance that the rates can continue to go up, because everybody's in that problem right now with just the recycle market's not very good, and they're having a tough time selling commodities, and that's what's causing the price increase.
So I don't mean to take up all this time, but so cost to our families that are on fixed incomes, they're looking at $10.54 a month versus $5.92, or are there other fees involved with that?
$10.54 is the collection rate. So we'll still have the senior discount that's offered. That would be the same as we do with the solid waste, and our seniors go through those channels for that. So one of that is to hopefully get people to continue to recycle and make sure we don't have contaminated carts and some things on that. And so we have some flexibility in those carts. I know we do have multiple residents. In fact, we had looked at it today. I think we only have 80 residents out of just under 10,000 that only use a 32-gallon. We're about 7,500 customers that have a 65-gallon can. So we're right where we want to be with that. It's a possibility to look at a variable rate for the size of carts, but I just don't think with the number of carts that we have out there between the 32 and the 96, that rate would be much different. From a waste management standpoint, it's the same as far as the collection service going out and doing it, whether you have 32 gallons or 64. So it is an ugly number coming up front. I wish there was more we could do with that. We've been working hard on that, but it's $10.54 on the ground. Our seniors would still fall under that category of the senior discount with solid waste and recycling.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy, and what about the apartments complexes or places, neighborhood like North 30th? Is going to be same price or?
Correct. This would fall under multifamily, and currently our multifamily are 5-plexes and smaller. So if you have single family residence, duplex, triplex, 4-plex, or 5-plex, they fall under this recycling contract. It's when you get to a 6-plex or larger that becomes commercial recycling. And then those folks, those owners have the ability to go out, and that's an open market where they can find a vendor that works for them. So this is anybody that's in a 5-plex or smaller would be at this and still have their own cart.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
A couple things maybe before we move on, because definitely we'll be talking about this again with council, is maybe clarifying from Waste Management on their proposed rate increase is how much is affecting them taking over the billing versus all these other factors. I think that would be nice to be able to tease out. I think it would be, I think it'll be a lot smaller than we think it may be, simply because they bill and they get their own money. They don't go through the city almost as a middleman for their collection of funding, like getting money. And what would be great for us is the confusion that comes when folks are trying to resolve recycling problems. It gets really frustrating when they call the city and then they just don't get any, they get, we have to call another number, even especially when it comes to weather stoppages or services where our garbage guys are out there collecting. And so they don't know how to get information directly from waste management. So from that respect, I think it'd be nice to be streamlined, but I think having some of those, exactly how those things are going up would be great.
We'll find out how much that affects it and report back to you. Yeah, again, it's going to be a small portion, but it's still important to know that, just the way you said, Mayor.
I can work on that. I can work on that, Mayor, and ask, just a breakdown of what the administration cost is on that with that rate.
I appreciate the mayor asking that question because this is a very large increase, and I think we really want to know why that increase is happening. But I did want to start with, it seems like Waste Management's doing a good job. That's what I've heard, and I heard that from staff tonight. And the big picture message to our community is that these costs are going up and we're having to pass those costs along. I do want to know exactly the question the mayor asked and whether or not pushing billing over is cost effective. And I mean, it does mean another bill for constituents. It means another stamp. So there's some trade-offs there.
Will do.
And then finally, what I'll ask staff to prepare to bring back to council as well is, here's some questions. What if people want to cancel their recycling service? And, can they do that, or is it required? But I believe, I don't know, we don't have to get this discussion now, but if you're following where I'm going is you're canceling your recycling and now you're just putting more garbage in the garbage stream for the city. And how could that impact the amount of work that we're doing from the solid waste utility? So, I think we should, ask for staff to brief us on that another time, but it's certainly a question that I think came up from a smart person, not me.
We know we were giving you an awful short introduction to a big topic. I know that. So yeah, we'll come back with more of a chance here.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay.
Okay. So I have one last item in the report section. I believe the mayor and probably the council too received a letter from a property owner on East Parkway. I think they had a concern mainly about, there's in front of their house, the way I'll show it to you on a slide in a minute. The way they access, there's an unopened right of way just to directly in front of their house. So they have some concerns about the maintenance of the right of way. And then it's kind of also affected some concerns about the location of the garbage cart pickup. So let me show the slide of here's the property in red with a red line around it over there by just north of Vintage Lane. You can see East Parkway Drive goes north, south, and right here in front of the house is this right of way, and that's unimproved right of way. It has the landowner's driveway, and then there's this, when the road was built here by the developer, this is the heavier paved area for, public vehicles and garbage trucks and whatnot. So anyway, apparently most of the time we've been, over the years, picking up the trash up in this location, in this area somewhere. And I think the landowner over some time in the past months has really been pretty insistent about moving that pickup location down closer to the front of their property somewhere in here. And I think we tried to accommodate that for a while, and we ended up, you end up messing up, we messed up some of this soil here. It can't support a garbage truck and that sort of thing. So we need to put the can pickup up here a little closer to where we can drive our garbage truck. And so that's, I don't know, 15 or 20 feet different than where I think they want to do it. But that's that kind of practice where we specify, where we have to have a can picked up like that. I think it's pretty typical for the customers throughout the city. So that's one thing. But then in terms of the right-of-way maintenance, I wanted to show you the most relevant code is probably our Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 1228. It talks about street trees, but in here is where you have the part that the last sentence: the abutting property owner shall maintain trees and other vegetation on improved rights of way. So, basically, that's a landowner type responsibility. It's not unusual. That's our code. I've been in this career a long time, and when I was in the other organizations, we did it just like that. So that's not an unusual thing there, to have the landowner responsible for that sort of thing in an unopened right-of-way. What I would recommend to the council, we need to respond to these folks, and I would suggest that the garbage cart location, we need, like I say, we need to be able to specify so that has to come out where we can drive our garbage trucks on that strong asphalt so that we're not damaging anything. If while we were doing this backing into that unopened right away, if we mess that up at all, we certainly can, fix that back to the condition if it needs to be smoothed out and, whatever minor things to put it back to the way it was before. That's certainly something we could do and probably should do. And then the other thing is if the landowners are interested in acquiring that right-of-way, that unopened right-of-way, there's the street vacation process, of course, and it can help them through that. We can initiate it as a city. It would, I should touch base with the landowners and find out what they want to do, but we could initiate that. That would take your action, council, a resolution, and then of course the landowner would have to be responsible for whatever the price of that, the value of that land is, and they'd have to pay for other expenses like the appraisal. And so if they're willing to do that, that's I would say that right away there is, as public works director, I would certainly, it's a council decision, but I would recommend that it's, that street vacation would be, I would recommend it from public works point of view. And and I don't know if you have any questions or about what I've just said.
I have a quick question for you, Esco. Can you go back to the map for me?
Yeah.
I'm just curious of do we know what the purpose of that right of way was? Was it?
Back when this was done, I maybe they thought they'd extend that through to Vantage Lane. I don't think anybody in the subdivision wants that. And from a traffic point of view, I don't know why that's necessary. We don't have any utilities in there right now. I mean, if we did, and we don't need any sewer, we don't need anything for that. So you can always hold back a utility easement, but and still go forward with a street vacation for the land. But anyway, yeah, they were probably just thinking that might be something depending on how all this land developed to the south. But I've been here 16 years, and I don't see any reason from my point of view to recommend to you not to go ahead and vacate it if that's what the landowners want to do, and there's nothing else that comes out in the public process that causes you to change your mind. Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, what does that process look like, and how much staff time is involved with that?
Oh, like I say, you got to have an appraisal, and it requires a resolution for you to initiate it, and there's a couple of steps, a public hearing. So we can do that in stride fairly efficiently, but the landowner would have to be willing to pay for any extra costs. Like, I don't think it needs any surveying to do the vacation, but if they did, that might be an expense. They definitely need to pay for an appraisal, and they need to pay for whatever the appraised value of the land is. So, but the cost to the city, again, it's just that staff time that would go with setting up those resolutions and doing those hearings. That's not prohibitive, I don't think.
So your first step probably would be to ask them if they're interested, I'm guessing.
Yes, if I need to ask them, because they would have to pay. And if they don't want to even do that, I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Sure.
Yeah, you could initiate it as a legislative body, but if 50% of the abutting property owners file written objections to the vacation, then it's prohibited. So you want to get their buy-off early anyway.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of where I'd like to, personally, that's where I'd like to start.
Yeah.
And to see if they're interested in that, the first step.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions. Eska, do you know how many square feet that that right of way is?
No, I don't off the top of my head, but it's about 60 feet wide, I think. And this must be 100 or so feet.
Okay.
So, half of that would be 3-some-odd thousand feet, I guess. Square feet.
And I guess the next question would be for Kevin, is this something that we'd have to do vacation on, or is it something that we could just surplus?
I think this fits within the statutes for vacation, because if it was platted as right of way, you'd want to go through that process. If I recall, the black letter law on this, if it was platted within 25 years, you cannot require them to pay more than 1/2 the appraised value. If it was platted and used for over 25 years, you could require them to do full appraised. But I believe there's some discretion on that. I think it's maybe a may rather than a shall. But I can give you that information once I read the law again on that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think our initial thought is we just, would council like us to take those next steps, talk to the property owner?
It makes sense to talk to the property owners or the adjoining property owners there and see if they have any interest in that property.
Okay. And by the same token, we will be telling them they need to put the garbage can where we need it.
That's not up for discussion.
Okay. I just will be telling them that, and yes. Yeah. Okay.
So you talk to both property owners, right?
Well,
adjacent property owners.
Yeah, street vacation would require both of these folks. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I want to, right.
After when we talked to them about moving the trash can, we'd look to see if there's some mess we need to clean up. That's something we would do.
I would definitely, yes, we will take, that just makes good sense. Of course, we do that.
I have talked to some folks in that neighborhood, and hearing from you that there's no future intended use to connect to Vintage Lane. The folks I talked to didn't, want any additional openings. I would imagine that's the case. So I agree with the sort of asking if they're interested in a vacation in taking that. So thanks for the discussion.
Okay, we understand our marching orders. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'm going to sign off if all your questions are answered, and I'll get back to you on the recycling questions.
Okay. And I'm unsharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, Esco, and the
Thank you, Mary.
staff.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Moving on then. So item C tonight is any council member comments. Any council member comments tonight?
I might just ask that there was a public comment earlier about fiber optic, and we will have something scheduled for council fiber optic conversation coming up too. So just when I hear that, I'll make sure that we share that with the person who commented.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. All right, moving along then. We're going to go into Mayor's report. I'm just going to share my screen really quick because I have just a few slides to share with the council and the public. I'll switch over and grab my Yep. So our legislative session has started in our state down in Olympia. It started on January 11. This is a full 105-day session with legislators. And I think what's really interesting in our community is people may or may not realize that we have a part-time state legislature. They're not down there all year. They come in for a certain amount of time, and that's when bills and budgets are passed. That's the only time of year bills and budgets are worked on and passed. So wanted to just make sure that folks know in our city of Mount Vernon, we actually have two different legislative districts, and it's divided by Division Street, okay, Division North and South. And so in our 10th legislative district, Senator Ron Muzzall, Representative Greg Gilday, and Representative Dave Paul. And in our 40th legislative district, which is North Side, is Senator Liz Lovelit, Representative Deborah Lekanoff, and Representative Alex Rammel. Anyone can go online. If you want to just Google Washington State Legislature, you can find contact information for them. I found that all of them are very responsive. There's phone numbers and emails there for folks to get a hold of them. I wanted to read just in part a quick paragraph on the newsletter that was sent out by our 10th legislative district. And it says, this is a joint statement in part from, again, Senator Muzzall, Representative Gilday and Paul. Our district is one of only 4 of the 49 legislative districts in the state that is represented by both parties. Though we may not agree at all the time, each of us is committed to working across the aisle to serve the best interests of our district. We will be working together to help the state of Washington be a better place to work, play, and live. We hope to serve as a model to show how leaders of both parties can come together and help our community heal from the political divisions that have been so prominent lately. And so I just wanted to recommend the 3 legislators to put that out publicly, hold themselves accountable, but also be, as they stated, a model for leadership for their colleagues in the legislature. So bravo to them, and I let them know that personally. Letting our voice be heard. This is something that has been in place as far as being able to send information to legislators. If you go on our state legislator website, which is leg.wa.gov, you can find on the right column, it's a screenshot that you can see here. You can contact your legislators, you can comment on a bill, you can participate in hearings, you can track legislation, and a whole lot more. You can completely geek out on participating in the state legislature. I want to dispel myths that are out there that say that, because the Capitol is closed and this is remote, that there is some sort of impediment. And that is the most patently false thing I have ever heard. This is the most accessible legislative process in history in 2021, and I'll explain why. People are able to remotely participate from anywhere in the state. Prior to this year, you had to drive to Olympia to comment on bills in public and be on the Capitol campus. And so for us to drive 2.5 to 3 hours one way to make a 3-minute comment and drive back was cumbersome. And we were committed, of course, to do that in very important topics. But that is gone away, and people can sit in their home anywhere in our state and be able to participate. So I think it's very, very important that we share actual information with folks in our community that they can participate. On the legislative law website, you can see you can sign up for email updates. You can track a bill where you get information back to you if you're interested on a specific bill. You can also stream tvw.org and watch this all happen. You can subscribe to e-newsletters from your legislators at their website, and you can request virtual meetings with your legislators via their office or their phone. So super important to have the correct factual information out there. The other thing I wanted to address with our community, because this has come up with our downtown businesses specifically, but others, in watching events in our nation's capital and our state capital, it's raised concerns in what might the community experience in the coming weeks with the inauguration of a new president next week. So Some of the concerns that have been brought to City Hall and to the police department are kind of political car rallies that seem to be traveling around the county on the weekends. And of course, these are protected First Amendment speech issues. And so folks have the right to voice their opinions of political nature. But what that has done recently in the last weekend, especially after the riots in our state or federal capital, they want to know and they're concerned about violence in our community. Flat out violence isn't going to be tolerated. Our countywide law enforcement is in collaboration and will work together, not only to share intelligence if there's any possible threats of violence, but they will work together. There is staff planning that is occurring and staff deployment that could occur if extra folks are needed. And there's response planning for things that may or may not occur. We want to be ready. The First Amendment versus criminality. First Amendment is a protected right. It's sacred to a lot of people, or should be to a lot of people in our country. And so you're able to voice your opposition, your support in this arena, as well as religious freedom and all of that. But there is a difference between voicing that and there's a difference between criminal behavior, which is something that, of course, we are not willing to tolerate, or we shouldn't be willing to tolerate in our community. So if anyone is concerned, please feel free to reach out to our police department staff. Crime prevention staff are available to share information and some concerns. They're willing to come down and meet with any business owners, just really have someone to talk to of security things that could be done. And so we want to just be really forthright with those that may be fearful about watching what's going on, that we're ready to respond. I will say our community has been amazing when it comes to civil discourse. We've had protests, we've had folks expressing their opinion, and they've been respectful, they've been civil, and they've been peaceful. And that's, I think, what we all would expect to see as our county moves through this time in history. So I wanted to share a little bit of information on that. Okay, moving on then, item E is council committee agenda requests. Is there any requests tonight from our council? And just a quick reminder, we've got a few outstanding requests that have been scheduled to discuss, and the fiber optic system is planned for next week on January 20th. So you'll have Kim Cluppy, our Information Services Director, visiting you with that. And then we'll just double check on that. There's college way speed discussion that's still outstanding that we'll get on an agenda as well. All right. Moving on then, we're gonna start our new business. So item A under new business is the approval of professional service agreement for builder inspection services. And our Development Services Director, Chris Phillips, is here. Chris.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Council, city staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor or her designated representative to enter into a professional services agreement with MTC Incorporated for building inspector services not to exceed $50,000. This was included in your 2021 budget. MTC RFP went out the end of last year. MTC was the company that we currently use. They've been doing a fantastic job for us, and the board that was put together for reviewing the RFP requests that you continue that with MTC.
Great. Any questions for Chris on this?
I would move that the council authorize the agreement, the professional service agreement with MTC.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mark and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed tonight? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Item
Mayor.
B. Thanks, Chris. Item B tonight, I cannot talk, is commercial cold storage parking lot lease extension. And Public Works Director Esco Bell is here. Esco?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff requests council to approve a second amendment to the agreement with commercial cold storage to continue leasing parking spaces adjacent to South First Street in downtown Mount Vernon. City has leased the north half of the commercial cold storage parking lot located at 1011 South First Street since October of 2005. The lot contains approximately 24 spaces used by the city, and the agreement expired at the end of October 2020. The attached amendment extends that agreement for an additional 3 years and increases the price from $2,667.67. I know that's an oddball number. It was derived from construction improvements we did. From that amount per year up to $3,996 per year, and that also has a 3% annual increase. Downtown parking is at a premium, and the city began leasing the north half of the commercial cold storage parking lot to help with that situation in October 2005. The second amendment to the agreement has a term of 3 years, and either party can withdraw from the agreement with a 30-day notice. In staff's opinion, in my opinion, the $3,996 per year is a good value for these parking spaces that are optimally located in the downtown area. I think that pencils out to less than $30 a month, which again is a pretty good deal for that location. So my recommendation is request council approve the second agreement amendment to the commercial cold storage to keep these parking spaces going for a couple more years. That'll be important while we're working on these other big projects in the downtown area.
Okay, questions for ESCO on this?
I'd like to move that we have the mayor enter into this agreement with the commercial cold storage.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so a motion by Mary and a second by Mark. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Thank you,
opposed?
Mayor.
Same sign.
Council,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Motion passes. Item C tonight is the project acceptance for the North 19th Street Stream Rehabilitation Project. And Bill Bullock is here. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. As council recalls, this was a project location off of 19th Street, just south of Roosevelt. And last year, the metal culvert failing under this section of slope began creating some significant sinkholes that began threatening some residential structures. So over the spring and then summer, we began reconstructing and largely just removed the culvert and reestablished the stream bed. And we completed the final pieces of the project in October of this year. If you have a chance to run by it, I'd encourage it. The project has been highly successful. We got 3-inch grass growing on the slopes, and the flow in the stream has basically normalized, and everything is working as designed and expected. So we're pretty pleased with it. And at this time, we're bringing it to council for project acceptance, and we will close out the project after that.
All right, questions for Bill?
I have no questions. I'd just like to ask that council authorize the mayor to accept the work completed by Oceanside Construction.
Second.
Okay, so that's a motion by Melissa and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Unfortunately, item D tonight, Bill was asked if we could remove that. We're not ready for the project acceptance. As he was told, there is a delay with WashDOT and an inspection they need to do. So we'll come back when we're ready. So we'll be taking that off. All right, item E tonight is a bid award for a maintenance shop canopy addition project. And Bill's here to tell us about that. Bill?
Thank you again. So as council knows, we've been trying to come up with a good solution for our maintenance staff with our vehicle maintenance. They generally are very large vehicles we have, from fire trucks to garbage trucks and other vehicles, are too large to fit into the existing maintenance facility. And so our maintenance personnel end up working out in all kinds of weather when it's necessary to make repairs or maintain the vehicles for even just standard maintenance. And so this solution we have is what we were calling a shop canopy. It's basically a roof and one wall that allows us to build a building in this location and still meet the code that governs flood zones. And so we were able to award this project to R&R Excavating. We had 3 or 4 companies interested, but only 2 submitted bids. And R&R was the low bid. We've checked the references. We've gotten excellent comments back from them. So their bid was $250,010. And we are recommending the council awards the project to R&R Excavating, and we will get started on the shop canopy as soon as practical. This is a design build project, so that R&R Excavating, they have a set of engineers that will be designing the specifics of this structure, reviewed by the city before they submit, and then they're responsible for getting all the permitting and design. Then they will enter in, start their construction phase. There are a couple things with this project. We do have some unknowns with excavating different utilities and pipes and just other things within the pavement north of the existing building. So there may be some costs we have to adjust to and some issues. We also have, sorry, let me look at my notes. A couple of different options that Public Works may elect to engage in, and we'll evaluate those and move forward with getting a structure that will serve us well in the future.
Okay, any questions for Bill on this?
What type of options and what are the cost implications?
So one of the options, for instance, right now, in order just to get a clear span, 40-foot span structure for the maintenance, doesn't necessarily include, I'll call it horizontal truss members that would say support a crane in the future being put into it. They have approached us with an option that would be built out of rolled steel as opposed to a tubular steel truss or what their initial thing is, and then that would allow us, for instance, to put up a crane in that structure in the future. As I understand, is a neighborhood of about an additional $30,000. So we need to see what their proposal is and evaluate it and decide whether or not that's something we want to go with or not. But certainly this company seems to do these types of projects on a regular basis and has anticipated a few things that we need to consider. But for right now, we need to consider their bid as it is on the table to select it. So does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I also mention that the $250,000 is a good price given everything I've seen for building construction and estimates. We were pleased with his numbers, so that the foundation is not a cheap thing to do, and that this has a foundation to drive giant trucks and do whatever, and a 40-foot span too. All that drives up the. Anyway, this was a pleasing result, I should say.
So, I'll add a couple more details. This particular structure will be a 40-foot clear span, 60-foot long next to the building, and it will be a span that's minimum ceiling height of 24 feet, which is what allows us to get our fire trucks and some of these larger vehicles in out of the weather to be worked on. It also includes an additive alternative. Yeah, an additive alternative to add a 15-foot wide by the length of the front of the existing maintenance building as well, to add some capability for we do work on vehicles still outside of the building from time to time when we have all the bays filled. And right now they're working on asphalt. So having that additional apron will be beneficial as well. So the $250,010 includes the $10,000 plus some change for that additional slab.
Okay.
That additional slab also makes it easier to use the existing facility and the contact. Anyway, don't mean to inundate you with detail, but that's a good deal too. Yeah.
I was going to say, looking at these pricings, it looks like the best option that we've seen. I'm surprised at the price. We've seen a lot of other prices come in that were much higher than that. The only thing I would encourage staff to do is if we think that if this is going to be more of a permanent structure, if we're talking about doing some small upgrades for cranes or whatever else it is, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and do those upgrades. Being a shop owner myself, I know that you think you can get away with something, and then you wish that you'd have spent the extra money down the road. We've got some big equipment that goes in there, and that equipment has, whether it be heavy motors or other equipment that attaches to that, those cranes come in extremely handy. And I would just encourage to be seriously looking at upgrading that so that we could utilize the space to its full capacity.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. That's exactly what I was hoping that council would support, not only for that, but it's also a safety issue for employees. So I appreciate it.
Can I ask about the funding source? Went back and looked at the CIP. So maybe you could just fill that in for us. This is in the budget. Where's it coming from?
I don't know if Doug was listening, but we've been stashing away a little bit of fundings to be able to support this. It's divvied out per, say, our ER and our percentages of who uses the shop, how many vehicles, and then little bits are pushed in from each different budget. But if that's as simple as you need it, great. If not, Doug's right there.
That's correct, Mayor. Yeah, we already have some funding put aside for the Public Works building that's been accumulating, and then the rest of it is just going to be split between the utilities and the general fund based off the number of vehicles that they have. And so we'll have to, the utilities will be taking a great portion of that. And so we do have the funding available to handle that.
And the budget that we approved includes that.
We will have to do probably a budget amendment. I can't remember. I think we didn't have this actual canopy project in there. I think we had some money set aside to do like maybe some more evaluations and stuff for the Public Works building. So I'll have to look at that. But I think
there's $200,000 from the Public Works Facility Fund for 2021. I think that was planning and design.
Right, but that wasn't specifically for this canopy project. So we'll have to bring that forward as a budget amendment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'd move to approve the maintenance shop canopy addition project to R&R.
Council, good evening. Just a continuation from last week's dialogue regarding fire stations 2 and 3 and the planning. One of the things we had from that meeting was a takeaway on an update to our capital plan that we put together out of fire for how we're going to accomplish some of these daunting tasks ahead of us for all of our capital needs. So on the slide in front of you right now, I have just one view, and in your packets that I provided, there's 5 different versions of different bond amounts, but I'm just going to use this one for demonstration purposes right now, just to kind of talk about the different areas again, just to reorient ourselves on those. So if you look at the top there, that's kind of a projection over a 10-year period, looking at what is our revenue source. So in that top boxes there, you see where we have some generated revenue for the GEMT going forward. The other dedicated revenue line, that is for our contract with Fire District 1 for providing services to that area, and then interest earnings, and then just some general fund contribution line that's there that you see right now sits at 0 in all of these kind of scenarios, giving us the total revenue. As we go down in the equipment and to the expenditures part of that, you see just the different large chunks of places where we feel we'll have some expenditures. So looking at fiscal year 2021, we have the EMS equipment, that's the Zoll monitors, the gurneys and the load systems for our ambulances to make sure we have the appropriate equipment. The 150 there is for part of the ambulance, because another part of that comes from the county as part of our contract that we had with them. And then as you kind of move down there, you'll see other amounts in there. And so sometimes it'll be $600,000 for a fire engine. The 1,100,000 is for our ladder truck. And then we just tried to replicate that throughout the years at the time frames that we felt that those costs would come back into play. Just trying to show that no matter what we do, these costs are going to be there in the replacement for these vehicles and how we can use these funds to offset it. And then we've plugged in what is the fire station construction. In the original plan that we had sent out, I had put in there just large lump sums for the different years where we thought we could complete those projects. But then through dialogue from council, there was an interest maybe in bonding this and starting the project sooner. So with that, then now we're plugging in a reoccurring yearly amount to pay the bond debt with that. So in this case, this is a 20-year, and what that bond payment is approximately $605,000 per year. What that gives us then is a total expenditures, and just like anybody's savings account or checking account, however you want to look at it, is you have your revenue that comes in, your paycheck, you have all your monthly bills that go out, and then you either have some money left over or you have to take from your savings account and back and forth. So the number to kind of focus on as you look through those different pages of scenarios presented to you is that blue line at the bottom, which is what is our ending fund balance after we've received our revenue and had to make whatever payments we have to make for the stuff we need for that year. So if you look just at least in this scenario for the 20-year bond, there's revenue that's still available in our ER&R or our capital funding for those other costs that might come up. Other examples might be that maybe there's a fire engine that breaks sooner than we expect. Maybe there's pieces of equipment that don't last as long as we'd like, or perhaps these are funds that are used for some of the engineering and design for Fire Station 1. Maybe they're used to help pay down the contingency costs associated with our fire station construction project. So again, just possible available fundings for that. I won't go into all the different scenarios that I gave. I think hopefully the rest is self-explanatory. I'm happy to talk about each different scenario that I gave you. But I just want to kind of give just that quick overview of the different, what's on that plan in front of you. Next slide then, I think, Doug, is going to be you.
Yeah, and I know, so comments came up last time about exactly how long we can pay these bonds and if we could do it sooner. So those were those 5 different scenarios that you have as hard copies there in front of you. But again, I did do it for a 10, 12, 15, 17, and 20 year, and it shows what those different payments would be each year if we went to those, as well as the total debt service amount and the interest rate. One of the things that looking at this is a concern that I would have, or just a recommendation that I'd be looking at is still probably looking at going for those 20-year bonds. These are 10-year callable bonds, which means we can't pay them off early until after the 10th year. And so what we could do is if we could building up that reserve to, and invest any of those funds and stuff, so we have some reserve to pay it off early after that 10th year. But it still then it doesn't leave us in a hardship of coming up with those funds. So that would be what I would recommend is going forward with those 20-year bonds. A couple things I'd like to talk about though is after talking with our bond counsel and finance advisor and stuff going with this, there's a couple things we have to consider. And one of them is the recommendation that also bringing is that we hold off on our wastewater refunding at this point. What we really want to do is, if we really want to do is the best thing for the city would be to go forward with this bond and get it as a bank qualified bond. These rates here that you're looking at on this screen right now, those are bank qualified rates. If we did anything over $10 million, we would not be qualified as bank qualified, and those interest rates would go higher. And so if we were doing the wastewater treatment plant refunding and also this in the same year, neither of them would be bank qualified. And if that was the case, the amount of savings, it's not enough to really go forward with the wastewater one at this point. Since that's a shorter term, that one's only going to be like 8 or 9 years, while this one here is potentially up to 20 years. So my recommendation is to hold off on the wastewater refunding at this point, and then as soon as we get a better idea of the cost of the Fire stations 2 and 3, we can move forward with a bank qualified bond. And, other than that, I think, you guys all understand how the bonds work and stuff. Just one point to, once those bonds are issued, we have 3 years to spend up to we have to spend at least 85% of those funds within 3 years. So I know I got a few questions from council members the last few days, and I'm hoping I kind of answered a lot of those, but any questions on any of that?
I do have some questions on the revenue projections. First off, in 2020, we received some GEMT money, and we put that straight in the general fund to help us with the shortfall that we're going to have in the budget due to COVID. And I want to say that was around 859,000. Is that correct?
That sounds about right. Yep. It was about almost 900.
Okay. And was that for a full year or a half year's refund? My understanding at the time was that was for about a half a year.
So I'll jump in there, Doug, just real quick. So that was for a full year. However, we were doing only the bulk of our transports in that last 6 months of that. So that was really from that 2019. The way that is calculated through the GEMT, it goes by the number of transports that we have that are Medicaid. And in that scenario, we had 400, just 401, I think was the number actually, Medicaid transports. And the amount of reimbursement is based upon your fire budget and other costs associated with that, and some other financial calculations, and then associated with how many transports you have. And that generates what you can charge above and beyond what Medicaid reimburses you. As we've refined that, and as you look kind of down the line, why are those numbers not just double that if we're only looking at 6 months? Our Medicaid numbers are not just doubling. They're only going up by another factor of approximately a third, meaning right now when I look at it, we're sitting at approximately going to have about 623 to 650 Medicaid transports for the year. Well, that doesn't just double that number. Now, is some of that due to COVID? I can't answer that 100% yet. So when I did those projections, I tried to take a more conservative number, just so we'd err on the conservative side and not err on the wrong side of trying to estimate too high.
Yeah, I was just trying to get my head around, because I know originally we talked about a projected income of about 1.6 million from that, and that was going back to, I don't know, maybe February of last year when we had that initial discussion. And of course, we didn't know at that time what exactly we were going to see in revenues. So maybe our Medicaid patients use the service later in the year than rather than early on. I'm just kidding. When I look at that, if that's the projections that we've got, we don't really have much option but to look at a 20-year bond. If you look at what our fund balance is, ending fund balance is at the end of 2029, you go through all the other scenarios, and we've got negative fund balance, and we can't really rely on projections other than what we have for actual numbers. So I don't think we have any option other than to look at the 20-year bond. And I mean, there's a little bit of concern there as far as how long will this revenue stream last, for one. But then there's the other side of that coin, is if those revenues are greater, we can use that to reduce the amount of the overall bond. Is that correct?
That's correct. We can leave this in the fund to do something and invest those funds, and then after 10 years, when they become callable, we can pay them off there, or some portion of it.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mary.
I'm sorry. I agree with Mark. I had asked Doug the question about paying it off early because we've talked about bonds, but it's been a little while, so I just wanted to kind of refresh my memory. So I think the 20-year bond is a good place to begin. And if we, things come in better, there's that possibility that we would be able to pay it off sooner after the 10-year call.
Yeah, and then I guess my comment was going to be that I can't see the last 10 years of projections. All I got in these spreadsheets are the first 10 years. But when I was talking with Chief Bryce about this, he mentioned that, you know, if you look at our fiscal year 2029, it's sort of loaded up with lots of capital expenses, and that you could, in theory, move some of those around in the years. So I don't know if what the rest of that 10-year projection looks like. And so if the 17-year bond might be feasible just by moving the timing around.
Remember too that council makes, you know, budgetary decisions on a year by year basis. So the projections are really just, you know, that framework of really your decision making. I don't know if that helps too. So kind of knowing all the way out 20 years, if council decides to add more funding and pay things off, all of those projections are moot. So maybe looking at, I don't know, Doug might have a better way to explain it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we'll be looking at all those capital expenses every year and see where we are with that fund. And I think also, Richard, kind of to answer yours, before we decide on exactly what that bond's going to be, whether it's 17, 20, whatever, that'll be brought forward to you guys again to look at before we make that decision. So we'll be able to still, you know, look at that. It's just if we can start moving forward on it to get going on that, then we can actually do that. So right now, we can do a lot of estimations as far as, you know, looking at like that $10 million. But, you know, we'll have to have some upfront work done first in that design and engineering so we can get a closer number to what we, you know, that bond needs to be.
So when I talked to, just to finish my 2 cents on this, when I talked to Chief Bryce, we were talking about the short term versus long term and, you know, getting locked in. But one of the things that's convincing is looking at the total payment on a 17-year versus 20-year. You save some money, but then I asked about sort of pre-payment penalties, and you answered that with the callable piece. So we can't pay this off for 10 years at least. So we're going to be paying a lot of interest up front. I assume it's like a house mortgage. In how they stack it.
Yeah, and what the payments they're kind of variable. They average out to about that, but you pay so much. You pay interest twice a year, and then your a principal amount each year. Mm-hmm. So those interest payments are higher at the beginning, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They pretty much level up to the same though. It's not like a mortgage where you're all up front. That's not, the bond's a little different than that. You're paying pretty much the same each one.
Oh, okay. Well, just to finish my 2 cents, I mean, I would lean towards the longer bond, but I'm definitely going to keep an open mind about, is there, 17 years, is there something that's close to that long time frame that would save us some money, but that we don't put ourselves in any risk that the payments way more than we would project, or, even close to what we project. I just think we got to be careful about that. Thanks.
I guess I would ask the chief and maybe Doug, do we currently have the funds set aside to do the design and get an idea what our overall costs are going to be?
So there's currently funds in there right now to start. We have, I think there's about $118,000 for that right now. But then we can also, as far as if we know this is the direction we're moving forward to, we can easily do some, use some short-term general fund or whatever loans to pay some of these administrative costs up front until that bond comes in and then pay them back. And it'll all happen within the same year. So that's not going to be an issue.
Doug, if you want to go to the next slide real quick. I'm sorry, Councilmember. That might. So I think what might answer some of that question is if, from the staff recommendation, if we could just move forward with the design and engineering, and then I'll bring back to council the contract for approval for that design and engineering, and then we'll have a more concrete number of what that design and engineering cost is. And that, I think, will help us to answer, do we have those funds available internally now through the capital savings piece, or do we need to issue the bond right away, and that timing of that bond And that'll give Doug some time to work with the bond council and move forward on those long-term, utilizing financing from the GMT to pay those debt services.
Well, I think my opinion is I think we need to move forward with the design and engineer. So if we have the funding available or we need to do that, we get a better idea what our total costs are going to be on the project, and then we can make a decision on the amount of bond that needs to be issued.
I completely agree. The more detail we have, the better on a project this scale. And so we currently have preliminary estimates, but we need to keep going on the design and get that further nailed down. We don't want to delay, obviously. We don't want interest rates to go up, but we also need to make sure we've got close to the right numbers.
Melissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in to say that I started attending city council meetings, I want to say in February of 2017. And I've been on council now, this is my 4th year. And since that time, we've done nothing but talk about the needs of the fire department. We heard 2 years ago from the voters, they turned it down, that and we've got to look at the taxes that are involved with this. And we made a bold move with some other cities and we revamped our EMS system, and it's opened up this new revenue stream that I think it's important for everyone to understand that this is federal funding that we're being reimbursed for, so it's not your local tax dollars going up. It's time we put the health and safety of our employees in the fire department front and center. The city picked up 15 additional staff when we decided to revamp the EMS system. And I kind of equate it to right now, my son's got his gym set up in the garage, and then I pull in and the car's going, and there's all these carcinogens in there, and this is what our first responders are dealing with. And we've really got to be bold, do this, and just keep moving forward. So I'm all for moving forward with this.
I agree 100%.
And I am too. I am 100% too with this. Because talking for our community, I want to say the EMS, it has been as a miracle for many families. They have been with no resources in an emergency to go to the hospital. And many of our citizens, they've been saved because of the EMS. And I am on this, and I would like to move forward to approve this issue. Thank you.
Okay. So what I am hearing is, and there's no formal action tonight, but what I'm hearing is that you would like staff to continue moving forward, bring a contractor back in order to get moving on architecture and engineering. Doug will also be able to brief you on kind of the timeframes on bond issuance. I think it's up to a 3-month process. And so I think once we can get architecture and engineering on board and knowing how long that would take, we can then advise council on when we should take formal action to initiate the bond. Does that, Doug, did I say that in the right order?
Oops, perfectly.
Okay. So is that all right with council? We'll go ahead and work on a contract bringing them forward. Okay, thank you. That's great. Okay, moving on our agenda.
And can I ask a question? I'm not really sure the answer. That's why I've got to ask the question is sort of public process associated with this. Fire Station 1's a new build. I think there's still a lot of discussion there. Fire Stations 2 and 3 are essentially, adding on, making better situations for facilities we already have. I'm not sure that there's a lot of public process in that. I do want to, make sure that the public, anybody who may be listening, understands that everybody on this council, the mayor, the staff, want to hear from the public their thoughts and questions about this project that we're doing, and anybody who suggests otherwise isn't being honest about it. We want to hear and talk to folks. I'm just curious where folks think that there may be some need and opportunity for the general public to comment on this particular part of the project, stations 2 and 3. How do we see that happening?
Richard, maybe I can address that a little bit. I've reached out to a number of folks in the community, and I've talked to them about this proposal that we have. I've explained the GEMT money. I explained that we put a bond on the ballot a couple of years ago. Part of that was to go to build a new fire station. The other part of it was to do these upgrades to stations 2 and 3. Most people lost the fact that we were doing any upgrades to stations 2 and 3. What they saw was this big dollar amount to build a new fire station. Once I've sat down and explained to them that under this proposal, we're going to be using federal funds that are coming in to reimburse for certain services to service the debt to do the upgrades to 2 and 3. That we're going to be providing one more space, but we're also going to be providing health and safety benefits for our employees. I haven't had one person that has opposed this. They all thought it was actually a great idea. That being said, we still have a number of steps to go through this process. So the public, if they have any input, I think now is the time for them to contact their council members. They've got a number of ways of doing that. I'd love to hear from the public. But as I said, I've reached out to a number of folks in our community, and I've yet to find anybody that didn't think this was a good idea.
I think too how we, when council initially completed the needs assessment, there was multiple public open houses. We did tours of our fire station. I believe Chief gives his cell phone number out. I do as well. And so it really behooves people if they're interested. We have had open arms. We'd love to give tours of Fire Station 1. That's like the best thing ever for folks to see the need, right? And then when it comes to input on, new large public buildings, just like we had our sub-area plan, we've had public come in. And our open houses we did has the concept drawings. People get to vote and stick and, for what they like. And so I would anticipate that Fire Stations 1 and hopefully our Mount Vernon Commons project, that we have that, and it's exciting and we welcome that interaction. Not sure how folks really want to be involved as far as just remodel projects. No one really cared about poor wastewater treatment plant remodel recently. But if they have things that they'd like to see, come on by the fire station, call the chief. We're happy to give that time and listen.
Could we commit to a couple of open houses as we get the design further nailed down to show what those changes are going to look like, what people are paying for later, assuming COVID becomes something that's manageable, that we could do that?
Great. I think that's great. Sure.
I also think it's important for folks to understand too, we're doing improvements and upgrades at stations 2 and 3. We are not replacing station 1 under this proposal. When that time comes, that'll be a measure that goes back before the voters are going to have an opportunity to weigh in on that. I think it'll be at a lot greater reduction than what we saw the first time around, because we're able to find a funding source to take care of the other needs that we had. I think people will be a lot more responsive in a positive way to pass that new build for Station 1. But at this point, we're looking at ways to reduce the overall cost of the project. We found a funding source for that. There again, I think it's great for the public to participate. I'd love to hear from them. But I think it needs to be said that we are not circumventing the will of the voter. We're not going ahead and building a Station 1, but we are taking care of some needs that we have for upgrades and remodels in Stations 2 and 3.
And we've committed to design, moving forward design, at a decent pace on Station 1. It's on the back burner for a moment, but it's not out of our minds. Just not how we're going to pay for this with this process. Sorry, I'm sorry, Jill. Mayor, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to kind of wrap up by saying I think we've got our work to do, and we'll be back as soon as we possibly can to council for some action and then get going. So it's exciting. And, you know, we really thank the city council for, you are the elected officials of this community. And so thank you for getting things going. We're excited. Okay. All right, call if you have any questions, if you think of something that came up after this. All right, item G tonight is for the good of the order, the COVID-19 pandemic response and discussion. The only thing I was going to share, which was, it's just kind of some bummer news in the briefing from public health this morning. Trying to find my notes, I apologize. We really talked about how Skagit County, the number of vaccinations that have come, like actual vaccine that has come to be able to distribute in the county has, we have not received any in our county for 2 weeks. Public health has not. And so I had to chuckle at one of the letters to the editor about, you know, those people should be calling and, you know, raising heck. Well, believe me, yeah, y'all raising heck. So don't, our public health officials, Dr. Libran, our county commissioners, are working with the State Department of Health to figure out why the allocations of vaccines to Skagit County have been nil. Island County has been sharing dosages with us, and that's been amazing of them to do. So we're hoping that some of those things can get worked out because it's not without a lack of trying. I am told by public health that there have been 200 doses distributed elsewhere. So the public health department hasn't received any. It doesn't mean that, say, a provider that's been approved, such as a healthcare system, or even a pharmacy might have not received some doses. So there were some that came in, but that's just, it's just disappointing. So they're working as hard as they can to get more actual doses than to deliver because they're set up and ready to go. So, you know, they'll keep trying. It's really, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, and they've done a really amazing job in keeping an attitude of trying to solve problems. So I want to be able to offer support to public health at this point. Chief Price, I don't know if you had anything else to add from your perspective of.
No, just wanted to pass along too, and there'll be more communication coming out on this, but the testing site's going to start, I think, reducing its days in the coming weeks for testing as they start to transition more to the vaccination. So I would encourage folks to be on the lookout for that information so we can keep sharing that. The idea is that, you know, we're going to be moving from, you know, doing the large scale testing to the large scale vaccination as that vaccine becomes more and more available to that. It's really important that we start communicating that out to the public. We've been very fortunate to have the testing site we have, and we've pretty much tested anybody. You pull up, in the beginning, it didn't matter where you lived, where you came from, in-state, out-of-state, in-county, out-of-county, it didn't matter, they tested them. As time went on, that took its toll, and they started, you know, shrinking that down to those that lived and worked here in Skagit County. And I think they're going to shrink that down even further to the symptomatic folks, as opposed to just the asymptomatic. You know, they were getting folks like, I'm going away, so I want to get tested before I see my family. That's great. But as we start to shift and need the personnel for vaccination, they're going to have to shrink that down. So again, please be on the lookout for that and help share that message back to the constituents, that we're not trying to deprive them of the service, but we're trying to say we need to get to vaccination. I think you'll see a further rollout of more groups being rolled out. We're working right now from the fire side with County Health specifically for the second round of vaccinations for our fire folks, along with looking to be able to vaccinate our PD and law enforcement in the county. So we're continuing to partner with them to help get that vaccination through our services as well. So as soon as we get the vaccine, we're going to start getting it in people's arms.
Just 2 more things. We have had some employee exposures, and so you know, we're seeing a few more folks needing to go out on quarantine, which is disruptive, not through any fault. It's not blaming anyone, but there's disruption when you know, you have a 1 or 2 person department and they're both out because they're sick or they've been exposed. So we're doing our very best to keep services at the level we need to. And then I don't know if anyone, any of council had any questions about kind of what I just talked about briefly in Mayor's report. We are preparing a letter, a joint letter from the, and I can't find anything tonight, the police chief, Chris Kamek, and I put together a letter to send out to our downtown business community around some of their concerns about any type of civil unrest. But Chief Kamek is here in case you were interested in any other details about just, you know, looking ahead to what may or may not occur, but we want to be prepared. So he's here if you have any questions about that. And I'll forward the letter as well to the city council that we'll be sending out, so you have it. Any questions for Chief Kamek? Okay. Thank you then. Okay, so we have completed our regularly scheduled agenda items. I'll ask our city attorney if there's a need for an executive session this evening.
Yes, Mayor. I invite the City Council to enter into an executive session for a period of 25 minutes to discuss the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause the likelihood of an increased price pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1B, and to discuss the legal counsel matters relating to enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding such discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1I. Council is not expected to take final action following the executive session.
Did you mention a time, Kevin?
25 minutes.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll be adjourned into executive session. As we transition, if council wants to take a 5-minute break, there you go. And then we'll be back in exec session.